Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Paper Wishes Weekly Webisodes. I'm Sarah Newman, and I'm happy to bring you the 33rd episode of Mixed Media, The Paper Wishes Way. So today we're going to work with the Essentials collection from 49 and Market. Now you might have noticed that today's webisode is called Part 2. Well, the Essentials collection is so big and so fantastic that we decided to create two webisodes rather than just try and cram everything into one. So you can watch part 1, which uses different supplies, on the main webisodes page of the Paper Wishes website. But stay with me for now because I have to show you these beautiful papers and embellishments. We can start with the gorgeous Essentials collection pack. This contains 32 sheets of double-sided pattern papers, 4 each of 8 designs. Now you can see some of them here. They are absolutely stunning and so easy to work with. Now you're also going to have 82 laser die cuts. You'll have 2 sheets of these 2 designs. You can see how beautiful and intricate these are. And of course how perfectly they coordinate with the rest of the supplies in the collection. So the papers are 6 by 8, making them perfect for cards. They're also perfect for the Foundations album, and we will take a look at this as well. So those are the papers and laser cuts. Now we also have some coordinating chipboard stickers, and I'll kind of move these things aside so that you can see. Here you've got 33 sturdy self-adhesive chipboard elements, and they all have this really nice and very unusual kind of soft matte finish to them. So they're really tactile and really nice to work with. Okay, now there are also some file frames here. These are square file frames. You'll have 48 pieces in total. So you're going to have 18 tabbed frames. They'll look like this. You will also have 18 tabs, and you're going to have 12 mats. So you can do lots of stacking and layering here. Now the frames come in 2 different sizes. They fit 3 by 3 and 4 by 4 inch photos. So lots of fun that you can do with these. Okay, I'll move these aside and we'll take a look at something else. There are also rub-ons in the collection. I love these. Now they're so elegant and beautiful. They're easy to use and you really get a lot in here. So take a look. You've got borders. You've got some background elements. You've also got words and little collage pieces. There are 6 sheets in all. And I think if I flip this over, you can see each of them a little bit better. Now, these will work just like the rub-ons you may have done as a kid. In fact, you even get the little tool in here too. But they're a lot easier to apply. And of course, the designs, well, they're 49 and Market. Okay, one last element in the collection. You've also got wishing bubbles and trinkets. These are 55 epoxy-coated sticker embellishments. You've got butterflies, you've got words, and you've also got hearts and some little buttons in here too. Now, as a paper crafter, I'm going to point out the packaging also is really beautiful, and I think you could even use this sheet for some of your paper crafts as well. Okay, everything is designed to coordinate perfectly. You'll have beautiful projects when you're working with these. And of course, they all have that really unique 49 and Market style. I have cards and an album cover to show you today, plus some demos and tips. So as you can see, we have a lot to explore today, and I am so glad that you're here. Come play with us. Let's start with this card here. Now for this one, I've covered the card front with a really versatile dictionary pattern paper, and then I just did some simple mixed media layering to create depth. Now this is all super easy to do since the collection pretty much takes the guesswork out of coordinating your supplies, but it still gives lots of room for creativity. So for example, down here, I've applied a lace rub-on right on top of that pattern paper. Now the paper has a pretty high contrast black and white pattern, and I love how this soft tan color adds dimension, but it's still really nice and soft and subtle. On the card focal, I've also added another rub-on, so the word beautiful here is a rub-on, and I like how that coordinates nicely with the epoxy word, so I can really create my own sentiments and card focals. So let's talk a little bit about rub-ons. Now, if you, like me, used rub-ons when you were a kid, this will seem very familiar. The concept is basically the same. The only difference is The designs are a lot more sophisticated these days, and I think they're a little bit easier to use as well. So here I've just snipped out one of these beautiful botanical rub-ons from the backing sheet, from the main sheet. I've kept the rub-on, which is this top layer, on the liner piece, just so I can keep the two of them together. Now the rub-on has a little bit of stickiness to it, which is really going to come in handy when we're doing our rubbing. So I've also got 3 sheets from the pattern paper collection, and I just wanted to kind of show you how you can play with your rub-ons before you commit to putting them down. So I'm just going to take off that liner piece and set this onto the dark pattern paper, and you can see how that will sort of blend into the background. So that may be a look that you're after. You may want to play with some of the sort of middle value paper, so this nice soft gray. And of course this has some dark areas as well as some light areas too. So again, you can play with how you're positioning this before you commit to putting it down. And then of course the lighter pattern paper, and you could just simply pop this down here and have it even interacting with some of the pattern design on the background sheet. So that's what I'm going to do for this one. I'm just going to pop this right down and just gently press it down. Now in that rub-on set, you've also got one of these little plastic tools, and this is going to be what you'll use to burnish the rub-on. So it's got a tip on one end, and that's where you can sort of go at an angle and just simply burnish this firmly but gently and go along like so. You just want to make sure that all of the areas are being burnished really nicely. And then I also like to use this long flat side, really just to make sure, especially with some of these larger rub-ons, that I get to all of the areas. And this is where having the little bit of stickiness on the back of the rub-on comes in handy. I remember as a kid hanging on for dear life so that my rub-ons weren't sliding all over my paper. Okay, and then I'm just going to gently lift up one portion and really slowly pull this back. Now as I'm doing this, I'm just checking to make sure that I don't have any elements still on my backing sheet here. So I can go back if I need to and just place this back down and then burnish again. So I can see I didn't get this leaf very well, so I'll just come back and add a little bit more pressure. And there we go. And then when I pull this off, there won't be anything left on the plastic piece, but I will have my beautiful rub-on transferred down. So that's how easy it is to do. And again, just depending on what kind of paper you put it onto, or what color or what portion of that paper, you will get a completely different look, which is a lot of fun. So coming back to our main card, you can see that I've got some more layers going on here as well. And I've got a pattern paper strip going on here. I've also got some of those chipboard elements and part of a file frame that I've cut in half with the file tab on here. I've got the sticker hinge and then also, of course, the epoxy U on here. So lots of different layers. Now you'll notice some color on the border strip here, as well as my card focal. Now this is just acrylic paint, and this is an easy way to create some contrast and dimension in between those layered elements. So for this one, I'm using the Balmy Night. This is the Dylusions acrylic paint, and a little piece of Cut and Dry. So Cut and Dry normally comes on quite a large sheet. You can snip it apart with scissors and just use little portions of it to do your edging. So let me show you. I'm going to move aside my card and bring in this beautiful piece of pattern paper. Working onto my craft mat, I'm just going to put a little tiny dollop of that paint on here. Now your Cut and Dry will have two halves to it. So you have sort of a nice spongy soft side and then a firmer dark side on here. So you're going to just simply take a little bit of this paint onto the light spongy side of your Cut and Dry. You can see how I've got that on here. And then simply run this along the edge of your cardstock or paper. And then what you'll find is that you have a really nice edge. I'll bring this in, maybe you can see it a little bit better on here. And this will create some contrast and some differentiation between those beautiful collage elements. And it does create a really nice touch. Okay, I'm going to bring back in my card here, and you can see that I've used the Balmy Night around here. I've used white paint here, and this is the White Linen Dylusions paint, just on this strip of pattern paper. And it adds just enough contrast to make those elements stand out. Now on the card inside, I have more of the dictionary paper. So because you get multiple sheets in the pack, you don't have to choose if you can use it on the inside or on the front. You can use it on both, which is really nice. This is one of my favorite sheets, by the way. Now I edged the focal again with that Balmy Night paint. Then I added a file tab right here and some of these laser butterflies. The sentiment that you see here is printed right onto the paper, so it's super easy to create a totally coordinated and beautifully collaged card. That's also a lot of fun to make. Okay, I've got a couple more cards to show you, again using some of the acrylic paint in a little different way. This card uses the same supplies and techniques as our first card, but with some different effects. So here I've covered the card front with this pattern paper, which is absolutely gorgeous, and one that I really think speaks to the magic of this collection. You could simply cover your card front with this collage paper and maybe add just a simple card focal and you could be done. Now, of course, we're going to add in lots of other elements, but I think of these as building blocks for paper crafting. You can do so much or as little as you want to. You can decide. The choice is up to you. So the card is covered with collage paper, and when I edged the card with Balmy Night, I angled my piece of cut and dry with that Balmy Night paint on it. I angled it a little bit more toward the front of the card. So rather than holding it straight along the edge, I angled it in, and that's going to give a much heavier and more dramatic look with that paint. So you really can control the amount of paint and edging that you're doing on here. I thought the Balmy Night ties in really nicely with the blue on this pattern paper, so I wanted to give it a heavier edging. I also wanted to do some splattering on here too, and it may be a little bit subtle for you to see on camera, but trust me, it is there, and it really adds a nice look to this background piece. So what I thought I would do is bring in a piece of paper that is similar to the design that I used on the front of the card, and I'll show you how to do that splattering look. So for this, of course, I need to have my Balmy Night acrylic paint. I've got my Distress splatter brush on hand, working onto my craft mat, of course. And I've also got my water mister bottle here ready to go. So all I need to do is just put a little tiny dollop of that paint, not much, right onto my craft mat. And then I'm going to mist a little bit of water on here, just a couple of spritzes. And then using the tip of my bristles, I'm just going to make a watery wash here, right onto my craft mat. And then holding my brush a couple of inches away from that pattern paper, slightly pointed down, I'm just going to drag my finger across those bristles. And of course, the more water you use with your paint, the more diluted your paint color will be. So again, you can control how much or how little of that paint you want on your card. And then all you need to do is just let that dry and clean up your craft mat like so, quickly and easily. I'm going to set this to one side, and we can take another look again at our card front here and talk a little bit more about the card focal here. So I've got the file frame, and I've turned this as a diamond, and it's framing the rub-on sentiment that says best friends. So I did the rub-on after I splattered the paint. Just make sure that your paint is dry. If you're in a hurry, you can speed up the dry time with a quick blast of a heat embossing tool. Now I've got some more rub-ons here on the side. I also have a rub-on on this epoxy butterfly, so it's possible to put those rub-ons onto the epoxy as well. I've got some laser botanicals and a couple of chipboard buttons on here. Then for the card inside, I have another heavily edged strip of pattern paper, plus a lace rub-on. I've got a chipboard butterfly. I absolutely love this. And a little epoxy sticker. Okay, I have another card that I want to show you too. And this one is using, again, the same techniques and even the same general layout, but I have a different color emphasis. So this time I edged and splattered the card. Rather than Balmy Night, I used Desert Sand paint. And this is going to give a softer look. Still, I have rub-ons. I've got one right back here. I've got some of these little beads going across here. I've got the file frame, I've got chipboard, this really nice big element here, and the epoxy hello on here. Now when I put the two of these together, you can see just how similar they are in design, in layout. Even the focals seem quite similar here too. So it's a great way to utilize these materials together. Again, you can kind of scrap lift or card lift from yourself and create the same basic layout, but with a different color scheme. Now for the inside of this card here, you can see I have one of the file frame mats, and these are really nice. They come in handy. I've also got a portion of the file frame. I've snipped this apart. Got some laser die cuts, these beautiful butterflies and the botanical, and another epoxy button on here too. Okay, so we have looked at cards for our Essentials collection, but as I mentioned earlier, the 6 by 8 inch papers are also great for other paper crafts. So I have to confess, the first time I saw the Foundations album from 49 and Market, I absolutely fell in love with it. This measures a little bit bigger than 6 inches by 8 inches, which means it is perfect for the pattern papers from the collection today. And of course, it works beautifully with the photo themed elements in the set too. Now it's 3 inches thick, which means you can really decorate those inner pages with photos, journaling. You can add in pockets, recipes, memorabilia, and the width of this will accommodate things. Now inside you have 6 attached black pages that fold out. Now these measure 8 inches by 12 inches and they are scored at the 6 inch mark, as you can see on here. So you've got some really fun creative possibilities with these pages. And the album is really sturdy too, which means that you can use lots of your mixed media materials and techniques as well. So for the front cover of my album, I have some of our beautiful pattern papers, and I'm using the white linen Dylusions paint to edge this dark paper here. Then I have my file frame. I've got one of the file frame mats underneath here. I've got some chipboard stickers. I have some epoxy elements, and down below I have a rub-on on that dark paper, and I really like how dramatically that turned out. So when I assembled this, I put all of the papers together first and then adhered them onto the front of the journal. And I recommend that you use a good sturdy adhesive for this. So maybe the Red Line Extra Sticky Tape from Paper Wishes, that would be a good choice. And then just build all of the other elements on top. Then for the inside front cover here, I have some pattern paper. As you can see here, I've got this really nice chipboard frame. The Essentials collection has a lot of words and elements that work perfectly with photos. So if you do a lot of scrapbooking or mini albums, you'll have a lot to choose from, like the memory on here and best of you, for example. I've also got a little epoxy butterfly on here, an epoxy sentiment, and some rub-ons going on onto this file frame mat. And then on this page over here, you can see how the file frames are really ideal for square photos. So here I've just cut apart a frame and used it with this picture of my daughter, and then combined the story laser cut and the rub-on sentiment here so that it reads "Story Caught on Camera," which I really like. Now because the papers and the embellishments in this set are so softly colored, I think you could easily use this for other kinds of photos too. Then when you turn the page, you can see it can either be like this. It can also fold out like so. I tried backing my camera all the way out as far as it would go, but it still won't capture the whole thing. But I think you can see here how nicely this can turn into an easy double page spread. So here again, I've used the file frame as a frame for my photo and then added a mat. I've got some chipboard elements on here, another one of those mats, and a partial frame and one of the sentiments. Now this is from the paper pack, so a really nice way to caption the photos. And then of course a little epoxy butterfly on here too. So we have explored a lot of fun ways to use the Essentials collection from 49 and Market, whether you want to make cards or albums. And because there's so much inside this collection, I think you can easily do a lot of both. Thank you so much for joining me today, and a really big thank you for being a part of the Paper Wishes family. We're really glad you're here with us. I can't wait to see what you create, so do be sure to leave a comment. We love to hear what you think. Each item can be purchased separately, and you can see them below. However, we've also bundled them together in a creative money saver just for you. For the money saver, just see this webisode on paperwishes.com.